Okay folks, welcome to another video here. This is the next in the series of the Seriously Sexy, put that the right side up, next is the Seriously Sexy books, and this doesn't have one of the Simpsons on the front. It's got some nice lady with some frilly knickers on them. It's from Seriously Sexy 3. My story in this book is called Los Hermanos, which translates from Spanish as the brothers. You'll see as we read the story why that's significant. But going through this, other people in this book, Penelope Friday again, Beverly Langlard is in there again, Jeremy Edwards again, Summer Marsden, amongst others. I'm nearer the front of the book, well, nearer the middle of the book from the back. It seems I started at the back and then I'll gradually move towards the middle. So yeah, I'm that slow burner of the second side of an LP, it seems. So 129, here we go. Okay, so this is Los Hermanos, and again it's another tribute to where I was living at the time, the Notting Hill Portobello Road area, and I imagined there's this great deli which started off as a general store, a Spanish store called Garcia and Sons. As you get up towards the bridge on the right hand side, that's been a long established part of the local community, and that kind of inspired me for the Spanish characters or the brothers in this story. And that's about it really. So yeah, this is Los Hermanos. Enjoy. I love the area I live in. West London is a subtle cacophony of the rich and poor, all kicking their heels in the same places, myself included, but I am neither rich nor poor. It's as much of a representation of the many different faces of the city you will find. Early mornings are my favourite. Even when I'm not working, I will get up early for the gym, or just to venture out into this melee of society and bask in all of its variety. After all, variety is the key, or is it the spice, to life. It certainly has been for me since the divorce. Richard's mother registered relief and glee when he broke the news to his parents over dinner. She never liked me. To his credit, though, he took equal blame as we sat there in our dining room carving into our racks of lamb, despite the majority of affairs originated from my side of the marriage. Not that he didn't have any of his own, he was just more faithful to his one ongoing mistress, although married herself, than I was to my string of casual male suitors. But I honestly thought that things would pan out in the long run, and he would eventually warm to the idea of having children. He didn't, and after 5 years of asking, we both realised that it had become something of a deal-breaker in our lives. I then met David, my younger and considerably more eager lover. He was great and wanted a family, but I soon realised that he wasn't ready at 23 to do anything apart from clubbing and picking up other girls. In fact, the underlying lack of responsibility and the raging infidelity pretty much brought things to a close. I should have known, really. I met him on a website catering for middle-aged women looking to date younger men, and he more than boasted that he was working his way through the 30 to 40 category, in which I come halfway, when we met. So despite his tremendous abilities as a lover, I came to the conclusion that it was time to move on. So that's what I did. After a couple of weeks of moping around the flat and watching Sex and the City marathons on Paramount Comedy, I had the urge to have some fun again, which is when I came across Ruben, who provided me with my recent sexual awakening and gave me the first taste of my new favourite indulgence. I woke in that particular morning with a raging libido as well, if I remember correctly. This is strange for me, as I'm normally a 1:30 PM to 2:30 PM kind of girl. Quite precise, I realise, and admittedly not ideal for a girl working office hours, but at the weekends when the shine is cutting through my bedroom curtains, making me feel idle and relaxed, I'm all mine. Plus, there is nothing better than a lunchtime lie-in on a weekend and a pulsating, self-inflicted moment of joy. I felt naughty and liberated with my newfound availability and pondered upon how I could fill the moment with a horny male specimen. Most of my casual encounters had gone silent or were spending more time with their wives, so I considered a call to one or two acquaintances. Just guys that would give me their numbers in a vague hope that I would call. I rummaged through my purse for the business cards and random scraps of paper that I collected, mostly in clubs with my supportive girlfriends who took me out with the premise of being the one who put me on the road to recovery, and tried to recall the people that they belonged to. Nothing. I screwed them up in my hands and tossed them into the creative mound at the small wastebasket in the corner, missing it by about 2 feet. I discovered my laptop underneath a pile of washing on my bedroom floor, flipped the screen open with the intention of surfing YouPorn and momentarily answering the calling in my loins, but I got distracted by emails, looking for the new Queen Andrina video and a slew of Facebook updates to attend to. I'm frustrated by why so many men in Turkey and Israel want to be my friend on Facebook. As cute as some of them are, I'm in London and they're not. On the flip side, the men in my general vicinity that do try to get through, prompted I suspect by the fact that I'm single and I'm in a group called Facebook Fuck Buddies, are either ugly, about to draw their pension, or wearing a baseball cap and a sneer. The majority of all the above seem to be in Essex too, which I am not. I soon realised that the moment and an hour had passed, so I took a shower and headed out for some fresh air. The sun was beating down on the capital and heating all of those postmodernist buildings and Norman Foster constructions, making the city humid, so I opted for my denim shorts and a bikini top with my wedge sandals. I grabbed my big sun hat, shades, and a well-loved Jilly Cooper from the bookcase on the way out. I came to the end of my street and turned onto the Portobello Road. There's a post office on the corner where the infirm and generally useless queue for government handouts every Monday morning. You can set your watches by the agitated looks on their faces as the minutes tick closer and closer to 8 a.m. Before this hour on a weekday, the street is deserted, save for the stink from the night before. The subtle smell of urine catches the back of your throat and mixes there with the warm smell of baked goods from Greg's. When I am down or have my monthly cramps, I nip in for a sausage roll, just for comfort, mind, and bask in the feeling of delicate pastry melting on my tongue and the crumbs falling out onto my chest. I particularly came across a few of the regular sights. The Marlborough light smoking, salt of the earth, setting up their fruit and veg stalls, for example. There's that rough-looking blonde outside Tesco with a foul mouth. She has her dark roots tied up with a pink scrunchie, attempting valiantly to compete with the low prices, and pours scornful looks upon the trendy girls in their ballet flats waiting for their boss outside the American apparel store, looking blank at the prospect of starting their working day. I caught them discussing hedge funds and how their portfolios are doing on the market. Film producers are perusing the scripts outside Progresso, sipping their lattes. They occasionally glance up, hoping to discover the next Kate Beckinsale or suitable English rose, and blink in bemusement when I glide past with my shocking red hair and exposed tattoos. When I do go as far as the tube at Notting Hill Gate, I like to stop at the Edwardian butcher's to look at the skinned game and the award-winning homemade sausages. Occasionally, when I'm feeling flushed, I will treat myself to a few, rounded off with my infamous spring onion and cheddar mashed potato. That day I noticed that they have rare breed and salt marsh lamb from Suffolk, wherever salt marsh lamb is. Then there's the imported coffee percolating at the Café Garcia, the heartland of the Spanish community in the North Kensington. I could hear the girls yip-yapping in their mother tongue as I approached the sprawling business, which originated from a small grocery store and now also comprises of a plush takeaway emporium. I caught the eye of a rugged Latin in a fitted grey sweater studying a jar of pimentos as I glided past. Our eyes locked for a second. There's a haunted sense behind the eyes that I recognise as a man's split-moment nonchalance and imagined him kicking himself, especially as I was quick enough to cast a smile in his direction and look down coyly before I disappeared from view. About 40 feet down the road I glanced back to see him, sans purchase, step out onto the street. A second glance ensured that he was, indeed, following me, as I secretly had hoped. He had changed his mind about his groceries, it seemed, and was now in hot pursuit of something tastier. I didn't want to panic him or have him worry that he was being a pest, so I turned and gave him an encouraging smile. Despite my fear that he would cut and run, I couldn't help but tease him a little. I stopped to look at some shoes in a window, and out of the corner of my eye saw him stop. I smirked inside as he looked as if he didn't know what to do with himself, before innocently carrying on down the road. He was putty in my hands. I darted into the coffee plant, my regular stop, and soon enough I felt his presence behind me as I queued for my organic tea with soya milk. "It's all fair trade and really good," I purred, turning my head slightly in his direction. "I saw you back there," he started. "I noticed," I interrupted playfully. He offered to pay for my tea as I pulled enough from my wallet. He ordered some Arabica and looked down at my leg. He commented on my tattoo. "It's new," I told him, looking down at the Celtic scroll on my ankle. There was a pause. "I have lots," I said, as I sipped and blew the heat from the edge of my cup. We stood awkwardly and he smiled down at me. His well-built frame towered over me as I wondered if he was the moody silent type. I also caught myself wondering what he looked like without that sweater on. He looked as though he always appreciated his mother's cooking, like most sons from the Mediterranean do. But then I like a little weight in a guy. "I'm Siobhan," I announced, holding my hand to him. He reciprocated. "Reuben." I asked what he did. Boring, I know. I had to get this off the ground with something though. He told me that he and his brothers are architects and told me about the local development they were overseeing. "I pass that every day." "It's noisy," I kidded. Reuben laughed. He spent an acceptable amount of time talking to my chest, but not too much, and looked as though he was undressing me in his head, as I flirted and touched his arm. As he talked about his family in Madrid, he placed his hand on the small of my back a few times. He asked if I was on my way to work, and I shook my head innocently, my eyes looking into his. As we were down to the dregs of our beverages, he asked in his broken English if I wanted to come and see his studio, as it was nearby, and it has a nice roof terrace. He suggested that we should get a little sun, and I wondered if this translated into Spanish as "let me fuck you on my sun lounger," but I could be wrong. My mind wandered back to my flat and the comforts of my bed, but the prospect of seeing this guy stripped was too tempting. "Won't your brother be around?" I asked him, as he took hold of my hand. "No, he's on site this afternoon," he announced, guiding me down the street. He walked me 5 minutes to his building off Ladbroke Grove. The office space that they had was fairly small, and it was the top floor of the townhouse, which was otherwise converted into flats. They had 2 rooms, a desk in each, and a bathroom. Filing cabinets appeared overstuffed, and there seemed to be more files on top than inside, but then the whole place could have done with some organising. But there was a distinctly impressive and intricate array of design talent on display. I walked over to an easel to see the evidence for myself. It was definitely technical. "Is this what you're working on now?" I asked. Reuben appeared, brandishing 2 bottles of iced tea. "This is your noisy buildings, yes?" he joked. He pulled aside the curtain and swished open the patio door on the roof, presenting the terrace with a flourish. "Nice," I said, with nodding approval. I ditched my hat and my purse and stepped out into the sun. I put on my shades and lost my top, exposing my boots to the neighbouring office buildings, and more importantly, Reuben. He seemed to approve, and I looked back across the doorway as I lay back and got myself comfortable on one of the deck chairs. "Are you going to remove some clothes and join me?" He pondered on that thought, casually sipping at his drink, before setting it aside and dropping his pants, stepping out of them and kicking off his straw loafers. He peeled off his sweater and tossed it into the shade as he climbed on top of me. I grabbed his bum cheeks and ground each of them into my hands, digging my nails into his hairy flesh as he pushed his mouth onto mine. There was a distinct and musky cigar taste, but his lips were deliciously cool in the heat. He gnawed at each of my breasts like he hadn't eaten lunch, as I pulled the hair at the back of his head. I pushed him further down and he took the hint about what I had in mind. He unbuttoned my shorts and left them around my knees, as he flicked me over and pulled my hips back onto his face. He pushed my bum back into him as he lapped away at my scent. I held onto the back of the chair in front of me as he nibbled the base of my spine and thrust 3 fingers in and out of my hole, making me squelch and squirm. He got to his feet and stood back to admire the sight before him. Cheeky bugger. He left me panting and in need of so much more. I righted myself and flipped over onto my back. Reuben stood before me, naked and cock in hand. He tore a contact packet with his teeth and spat the tab to one side. I peeled off the shorts over my ankles and sandals and spread my legs for him. I flicked my button as he pulled the rubber over his fat cock. He wasted no time at all, penetrating me with it, sitting snugly inside me. He eased it in and out of me and buried his tanned face in my neck. "Let me ride you," I whispered in his ear. He gallantly leapt to his feet and held out his hand, helping me up. We swapped positions and I sank down onto him. He bounced me up and down for a bit, massaging my boobs and controlling my action onto him by grabbing at my hips until I heard a door click and the sound of keys hitting a table. "Hola, hermano, ¿qué tal?" I stopped mid-grind and gasped. I turned to see a man standing in the patio doorway with a handful of maps. He didn't look perturbed or offended and just raised an eyebrow. I did that particularly English thing and tried my hardest to cover my modesty in front of the stranger. I shot my arms around my chest and slid Reuben's cock out of me. "Oh, don't mind me, you two carry on," he said, disappearing. I looked down at Reuben, who seemed completely unfazed at his siblings' presence. He shrugged and asked, "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, clocking the whereabouts of my skirt. "Don't you mind him being there?" He shook his head and announced, "We've seen a lot worse of each other. We're family." I cupped his wilting cock in my hand and lay next to him. In fact, we often share. "Oh," I realised. "Cool." He laughed and put an arm around me. We fell silent for a second as I attended his direction. As soon as I got rid of the rubber, he seemed to respond to the idea of me going down on him. "Would you like him too?" he moaned with pleasure. I looked up with his cock still in my mouth. His eyebrows were raised, waiting for an answer. It was something I always desired, but never fulfilled. The idea of taking two brothers on was very attractive also. Luis's look matched his brother's. They were almost identical if it were not for the height difference. I guess he sensed my curious approval and enjoyment of the moment because he called out, "Louis, come, join us." Louis appeared at the doorway. He watched me suck his brother's cock and seemed to be looking for my approval. "Don't be shy, brother," taunted Reuben, lying back and enjoying the attention I was giving him. I stopped and signalled him over. Louis stripped by the door and walked over to the edge of the sun lounger where I was perched. I grabbed Reuben by the arm and made him stand in front of me. Louis quickly joined him and took his place next to his brother. I put a hand on each of their cocks as they stood politely erect for me. I alternated between them for a while as they whittled away above me in Spanish, about God only knows what. I shooed Reuben away to get more protection as his brother buried his face in my crotch. He darted his tongue into me and rubbed my clit with his thumb. He sensed my arousal and didn't relent until my hips bucked. I shuddered as I cocked a leg around his neck. They carried on in their native language as they both moved and positioned me. We both moved to a nearby wall which Reuben leant against and had me bent over to suck him off. Luis got behind me and buried his cock into me. They took me at each end for my first spit roast. It felt great. I knew it wouldn't be my last. I had them at my beck and call, and they let me playfully guide them all around their flats, having them take me in every possible way until they gave me their basting and left me with my face covered in their mess. I staggered back to my flat and soaked my weary, satisfied bones in a hot bath and looked back on my experience with glee and pride. I was certain back out there now, and nothing was going to stop me from having fun. My fling with the Spanish brothers didn't end there either. The summer is still here as I write this, and if either Reuben or Luis pass my flat, they call in for a morning wake-up call, or I meet them both at their office, but only to give my expert opinion on their intricate plans, of course. Okay, so that was Los Hermanos from Seriously Sexy 3. If you like that and want to hear more, etc., subscribe to the channel and see more videos, and I will leave a link in the description if you want to buy the book. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.